Good hello, welcome to the Ring Challenge, a little method I whipped up on how to get to grips with new software, particularly effects-based things. Even more specifically, in this case, a new node structure. I've done a couple of videos on my journey with DaVinci Resolve so far, and this is a fascinating little story I think you'll find interesting. I will compare a lot to Toon Boom, of course, and how the same effect is achieved there. I find this to be quite a powerful exercise because it involves figuring out how shapes and layering works, how effects work, and how masking works. And the reason for it being a ring is a glow is a very easy to understand effect that basically every program has. However, not all of them have an inner glow. Therefore, it's required for the user to invent a machine that will do such a thing for you. Once it is built, you can pack it up and then reuse it whenever you like. First, I'll demonstrate the entire process in Toon Boom. One, because I'm sure many of you are more familiar with it, and overall it is an easier process. This is the full node structure here. The display is what we see. Whatever it's plugged into is what we'll see. So the top one is just the white circle. There is no background at all. It's just a vector circle. The second one down here, it applies glow to it. That's pretty straightforward. The next one down is a cutter. This is like a mask, but it's a little bit opposite. Rather than masking, it cuts shapes away. So we have the original glow, and then the cutter here you'll see has the raw shape going straight down into it. So now the glow minus the original circle yields result. Performing the opposite, an inner glow, is a little bit trickier. This required having a color card, a blank white background, and that has the circle cut away from that. Great big white sheet, circle hole. That becomes glowed. So now we have an inner glow. Same circle, but now it's firing inwards. So when that is cut out from itself, we're left with this. So that shape makes sense, yeah. Combined together, the glow ring. The only extra unusual thing to point out here is you'll notice that this mask is inverted. The colors are swapped around. That's what gives us this sheet with a hole in it. Otherwise it would just be the circle again, really. Only other thing to keep in mind is that this background here is inverted. So this is DaVinci's equivalent. It's quite different looking and took a lot of experimentation and practice for me to get my head around, and it was a bit boggling. So this is what happened. It starts off with a background. Just a sheet of white, very similar to the color card. That has a circle shape masked out of it. So we are left with the circle. Now the first big difference, I've talked about this in my last DaVinci video, is that you don't have just straight out drawing layers. Being video editing software, you start out with footage and then you mask and create shapes out of it. If you don't have footage, you can just use a background, solid color. There we go. This one next to it is the same thing, but it is inverted. Unlike the Toon Boom version, and something I still have to get used to, is there's no visual indicator to be able to tell which way around it is. I'll focus on this one on the left. Just creating a circle glow is probably easier to understand. It gets glowed. That's the same as before. But figuring out how to do this, the eclipse effect, to cut that circle away, leaving only the glow. You'll notice that nearly every node type here has the blue entry triangle. This is a masking setup. Like everything can have a mask applied to it. So at first, I just tried to connect something straight into it, but that didn't work. It took a long while to figure out what the hell's going on. And this finally led to the big revelation of how the layering and node setup is fundamentally different to what I was used to. Back here to Toon Boom's setup, this is why, this is very, very simple. It's just two pieces. One, of course, consider the cutter. The masking tool is an independent tool that exists on its own. DaVinci doesn't seem to have that. Instead, there are masking components built into every single node. So what do? Here I can't plug a mask straight into here. It happens afterwards. But still, this works. The reason it works is everything that you attach down this chain here, it picks it up, combines it, and treats it as a single solid object. This isn't just the glow, it is the glow plus circle. So circle can be removed. I'm feeling a bit rambly, but hopefully it'll become clear in a second. When I do attach a mask to this glow, watch what happens when I paint over it. See that? It's only removing the glow itself. The actual circle remains behind. So this entire chain, this whole setup, it doesn't pick up and combine things. This background is still its own independent shape. Combining a mask into here is only masking this piece, not everything that is being combined into it. if this was new, if this was the first node structure you ever learned, then okay, fine. You have no reason to assume otherwise. But this right here is the danger of investing far too much time into only one program for many years. You start to make assumptions. You assume everything works like that, and coming to an understanding that this is still separate, I felt stumped. How do I solve this? How do I go and interact with this now as a complete unit, or go into the circle in the background? I feel like now that the soft glow exists, the background is now inaccessible. And the solution was so strange to me to understand. This is it. This does work. I thought, naturally, get a merge, a composite, combine it together and mask that. So it would be a complete unit. And yes, this did turn out to be the solution. However, there was a twist. Of course there was a twist. And that's what this is here. This is another background. This is what my early attempts looked like, and it doesn't do anything. I've got the glow going into the merge, and the background masking away from that, and it does nothing. What's going on? It turns out that the blue masking parameter on a merge only functions on the foreground. So a merge has two primary inputs, background and foreground. The mask only interacts with the foreground, but without a background, it simply doesn't exist. A merge needs a background to be able to see anything at all. So I thought, okay, let's get another background, put that in there. But this is what it looks like at first. Being a background, it's another color card, right? It's a solid shape. And thankfully, by making it not just transparent, but also black, it does become invisible. The inner glow was the same story, just inverted. There were no strange tricks about that, so that was nice. But when it was combined together, I feel like I now had a new dilemma. If I wanted to mask this out, I had to remember that it was no longer being treated as a single unit, because the mask, if I'm right, is only going to affect the foreground. Whatever I paint here, notice it's only interacting with the inner glow, which is on this side, and this one's unaffected. So to be able to finally treat it as a singular object and be able to cut chunks away from the whole result required yet another merge underneath that, attached to the foreground. This original background, this like null object, that has to go into the background of that as well. And finally, a mask paint can go into the mask for the final merge. And at last, look at that. I can paint in and control the whole shape together. Naturally, for newcomers, this feels very strange. Why does it do this? Is this just counterintuitive and not user-friendly? Well, no, not really. You just have to take a step back and understand, well, why does it do that? First and foremost, of course, this isn't an illustration and animation program, it's a video editing program. Which, like I mentioned in the last one of these, video footage is the priority. That has to exist. Normally, the background here wouldn't be an invisible null object. It would be your source footage, a video or something. And if that were the case, it would be a massive pain in the ass if you were trying to, paint on something and it kept interfering with your video. So there we go. The ring challenge. Fun puzzle to assemble. And the result, the amount that I learned was just nuts. I suddenly feel so much more comfortable with the entire layering hierarchy, the sort of information that does and does not get transmitted through these arrows and strings. It was so very confusing before when I would try and perform any action and the result just didn't make sense to me. It really is a stark reminder to the first time I migrated to this program, Toon Boom, when coming from Flash. I think this is probably the biggest mind blow I've had since learning that Toon Boom frames are not equal to Toon Boom drawings and they're kept separate to one another. Whoa, that was a biggie. Have you ever had any big mind blows like this? Things that appear like they should be the same on the surface, but when you finally get under the hood and have that moment where it clicks, what did you discover? Thanks for your time. I'll see you later.